War Commander Thextal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, surrounded by the largest Valthek war fleet ever assembled. 200 ships filled the space around him, battleships, destroyers, and assault carriers loaded with enough firepower to crack a planet. He had ignored humanity's warning at the Galactic Council. The idea that primitive mammals could threaten the mighty Valthek Empire was laughable. The videos they had shown were obviously fake. The ships surrounding Valthek homeworlds were probably just holograms designed to scare weak-minded species. Thextal was about to prove that humans were still the same cowardly creatures they had always been. His target was New Jeju, a human agricultural world with 2.1 million residents. Intelligence reports said it was lightly defended, just a few patrol ships and a small defense station. It would be the perfect demonstration of Valthek's superiority. Fleet Commander, his aide reported, "We have arrived at the New Jeju system." Thextal looked at the display screen and frowned. The planet was there, but something was wrong. There were no civilian ships in orbit, no transport vessels moving between the planet and its moons, no communication signals from cities or farms. "Where are all the humans?" he asked. "Sensors show the planet is empty, War Commander. No life signs, no active settlements. It appears to be completely abandoned." Thextal's eyes narrowed. Had the humans evacuated their people? But that was impossible. His spies would have reported mass population movements. No species could move 2.1 million people without someone noticing. "Scan for hidden facilities or underground bunkers," he ordered. While his ship searched the empty planet, Thextal noticed something else that made him uncomfortable. There was a single human ship waiting for them at the edge of the system. Just one ship, alone against his fleet of 200. The human vessel was not particularly large, maybe half the size of his flagship. Its design was simple and clean, without the spikes and armor plating that made Valthek ships look intimidating. But there was something about it that bothered him. It was not running away. Any sensible captain, faced with odds of 200 to 1, would have fled immediately, but this human ship just sat there waiting. "Identify that vessel," Thextal commanded. "It appears to be the HNS Inchin's Resolve, War Commander, a medium-class human cruiser under the command of Captain Junho." Thextal activated his communication system and sent a message to the human ship. "Human Captain, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender your vessel, and I will allow your crew to live as slaves." The response came quickly, broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship in both fleets could hear it. Captain On's voice was calm and steady. "War Commander Thextal, you were given a warning at the Galactic Council. You chose to ignore it. You have brought 200 ships to attack civilian farmers and their families, but those families are no longer here." "Where are they?" Thextal demanded. "Safe," Captain On replied. "Far from here in systems you cannot reach. You wanted to kill innocent people to prove your strength. Instead, you will face someone who can fight back." Thextal laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "One ship against 200? You are either insane or suicidal." "Neither," Captain On said quietly. "You were warned to stop attacking us, or we would stop pretending to be polite. War Commander, we are no longer being polite." Captain Junho On sat in his command chair aboard the Inchin's Resolve, looking at the Valthek fleet on his main screen. His ship had been built in secret over the past 3 years, using technology that the galaxy had never seen. His crew had trained with weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. For 3 years, they had watched Valthek attacks on human civilians. For 3 years, they had waited for permission to show what humanity could really do. Today, that permission had finally come. "Captain," his weapons officer, Lieutenant Narration, reported, "all systems are ready. Spatial compression cannons are charged and targeted." "Engineering status?" On asked. "Dimensional drives are stable," Chief Engineer Youngman Bay replied. "Gravity manipulators are online. All safety protocols have been disabled per combat authorization." "Captain." On opened a communication channel to every ship in the Valthek fleet. He wanted them all to hear what he was about to say. "War Commander Thextal, 3 years ago your ships attacked our mining vessel Buzin Hope. You killed 847 innocent people, including 200 children. Since then, you have killed thousands more in unprovoked attacks on civilian targets. The Valthek fleet was moving into attack formation surrounding the lone human ship. Weapon systems powered up across 200 vessels. You called us weak, Captain An continued. You called us cowards. You said we were primitive mammals unworthy of respect. You were wrong about all of that. Enough talk, Thextal roared. All ships, open fire. Destroy this arrogant human. 200 Valthek ships fired at once. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic projectiles filled space around the Inchan's resolve. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the human ship did not explode. It did not even take damage. The weapons simply passed through it as if the ship was not really there. What is this trick? Thextal demanded. Captain An's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy, recorded by news stations and intelligence services across known space. No trick, War Commander. Just technology you cannot understand. We compress space-time around our ship, making us exist slightly outside normal reality. Your weapons cannot touch us because we are not entirely here. The Valthek fleet fired again, with the same result. Their most powerful weapons were useless against an enemy that could step outside of normal space. Impossible, Thextal screamed. No species has such technology. You are correct, Captain An replied. No other species has this technology, but humans are not like other species. We do not accept that something is impossible just because it has never been done before. The Inchan's resolve began to move forward, passing through the Valthek formation without fear. Energy beams and plasma bolts passed harmlessly through its hull. Lieutenant Song, Captain An said calmly, you may fire when ready. Target locked, Captain, firing spatial compression cannon. What happened next would be studied by alien scientists for centuries. The human ship did not fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, it fired compressed space itself. The effect was like watching reality break. Where the weapon hit, space twisted and folded in ways that hurt to look at. The targeted Valthek ships did not explode. They simply stopped existing. Matter was redistributed across several dimensions, leaving behind empty space where proud warships had been moments before. In 10 seconds, 20 Valthek ships were gone. Impossible, Thextal screamed again. All ships concentrate fire on that demon vessel. The remaining Valthek ships fired everything they had. Weapons that could melt continents, bombs that could crack moons, energy beams that could boil oceans. All of it was useless against a ship that existed partially outside reality. The Inchan's resolve fired again, and again. Each shot removed more Valthek ships from existence, not destroying them but simply making them no longer be. In 3 minutes, the pride of the Valthek Empire was reduced to floating debris. War Commander Thextal found himself in command of only his flagship and 12 other ships, all that remained of his mighty fleet. Around him, his officers stared at their screens in shock and terror. War Commander, his communications officer whispered, the human ship is sending another message. Captain An's voice filled the bridge of the Crimson Fang. War Commander, you now have a choice. You can surrender and return to Valthek space with your remaining ships, or you can continue fighting and join the rest of your fleet in non-existence. Thextal looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were veteran warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but now they looked at him with fear in their eyes. They had never faced an enemy that could make their weapons useless and their ships disappear. What are you? Thextal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We are humans, Captain An replied. We are the species you have been attacking for 3 years. We are the people whose children you have been murdering. And we are no longer pretending to be helpless. Captain An opened another communication channel, this one broadcasting to every news station and government in the galaxy. Let this be a lesson to any species considering attacks on human civilians. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We followed your rules and respected your laws. In return, you killed our people and laughed at our pain. Images of the battle were already spreading across galactic networks. Every species in known space was watching a single human ship destroy the largest Valthek fleet in history. We are not conquerors. We do not seek to rule over you or eliminate you from the galaxy. But we will no longer tolerate attacks on our people. This demonstration is over. War Commander Thextal, take your remaining ships and go home. Tell your people what you have seen here. The surviving Valthek vessels began to retreat, their proud formations broken and scattered. And War Commander? Captain An added, if any Valthek ship attacks another human target, we will visit your homeworld, and we will not be nearly as polite as we were today. 6 months after the Battle of New Jeju, Ambassador Jiwon Kim walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building once again. But this time, everything was different. The guards who had once ignored her now stood at attention when she passed. Alien representatives who had once laughed at human diplomatic protests now watched her with careful respect. The small human podium in the council chamber had been moved to the Elder Species section, reserved for civilizations powerful enough to destroy others. Jiwon took her new seat among the most feared races in the galaxy. To her left sat the representative of the Eternal Dominion, a species that had conquered half a galaxy before choosing isolation. To her right was the delegate from the Void Touched, creatures of pure energy who could consume stars for breakfast. Both of them nodded politely to her as she sat down. The council speaker, the same tall blue alien who had presided over humanity's humiliation for 3 years, called the session to order. His voice was much more respectful now. The council recognizes Ambassador Kim of the Sol System Alliance. Jiwon stood up, but she did not activate her translator. Instead, she spoke in perfect galactic standard, a language she had been learning during the past 6 months. Her message was clear. Humans were no longer the minor species that needed help communicating with their betters. Honored representatives, she began. 6 months ago, I stood in this chamber and warned that humanity would no longer tolerate attacks on our civilian population. Some of you listened, others did not. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the Valtech Empire. Their 3 homeworlds were still surrounded by massive solar flares caused by Dr. Kyung-ho Yoon's gravity bombs. The planets were not destroyed, but they would be uninhabitable for exactly 100 years. The Valtech Empire ignored our warning and attacked what they believed was a defenseless human colony with their entire fleet. That fleet no longer exists. The Valtech homeworlds are currently experiencing what our scientists call a controlled stellar disruption. Their suns will remain unstable for the next century. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, but they were murmurs of respect rather than laughter. However, Jiwon continued, I am pleased to report that the Valtech government has formally apologized for 3 years of unprovoked attacks on human civilians. They have agreed to pay reparations to the families of their victims, and they have provided complete intelligence files on other species that were planning similar tests of human resolve. War Commander Thextal was not in the chamber. He had been stripped of his rank and exiled from Valtech space, along with the other military leaders who had advocated for attacks on human targets. The new Valtech representative was a diplomat named Kexitar who had spent the past 6 months learning human customs and expressing his government's regret for past actions. Jiwon looked around the chamber, at representatives from dozens of species that had participated in attacks on human ships and colonies. All of them were trying to look invisible. I am also pleased to announce that 17 other species have formally apologized for hostile actions against human targets. The Nexari hegemony has ended its policy of strength testing against all younger species. The Silicon Collective has agreed to respect human territorial boundaries. The Zephonian Union has withdrawn all military vessels from human space. Each species mentioned shifted uncomfortably in their seats. None of them wanted to be the next example of what happened when you underestimated humanity. Some of you may be wondering about the current status of human military forces, Jiwon said. I am authorized to share limited information about our defensive capabilities. A new holographic display showed human patrol ships operating throughout known space. But these were not the small, lightly armed vessels that aliens had grown used to seeing. These were massive battleships bristling with weapons that could bend space and time. The human patrol fleet now consists of 2,000 active vessels, all equipped with spatial compression weapons, dimensional shields, and gravity manipulators. These ships patrol human space and respond to threats against human interests anywhere in the galaxy. Commander Seonwoo Nam, who now led the patrol fleet, had insisted that the new ships display their capabilities openly. No more hiding behind the pretense of weakness. The ships bore a simple insignia that had become famous throughout the galaxy, an olive branch wrapped around a neutron star. The message was clear. Humanity preferred peace, but was prepared for war. Our manufacturing facilities continue to produce new vessels, but I want to be absolutely clear about humanity's intentions, Ji-won said. We do not seek to conquer other species. We do not want to rule over your governments or claim your worlds. We simply want to be left alone, to live our lives in peace. She paused and looked directly at species representatives who were still considering whether humans might be bluffing about their capabilities. However, any species that attacks human civilians will face the full power of the Sol System Alliance. Any government that provides support for such attacks will be held equally responsible. Any organization that threatens human lives will discover that we have many ways to defend ourselves, and most of them are unpleasant for our enemies. The chamber was completely silent. 6 months ago, these same representatives had laughed at human diplomatic protests. Now they were calculating whether their species could survive a war with humanity. President Da Yun-cho addressed the human population from the rebuilt Seoul Command Center that evening. The speech was broadcast live to every human colony, every ship in space, and every diplomatic mission in the galaxy. My fellow humans, she began. 6 months ago, we revealed our true capabilities to a galaxy that had mistaken our patience for weakness. Today I want to talk about what we learned from that experience. Behind her, displays showed images from across human space. New colonies were being established in systems that had been too dangerous to settle before. Trade ships moved freely, without fear of attack. Families were returning to outer rim worlds that had been evacuated during the crisis. We learned that most species in the galaxy are reasonable people who simply wanted to test our boundaries. When we showed them our true strength, they chose to respect us rather than fight us. We are now working with former enemies to build better relationships based on mutual respect. She gestured to reports from diplomatic missions throughout the galaxy. Human ambassadors were no longer treated as representatives of a minor species, begging for scraps. They were welcomed as equals by governments that understood humanity's true power. We also learned that some species only understand strength. The Valthek Empire spent 3 years killing our people because they believed we were too weak to fight back. They discovered that they were wrong. Images showed the current state of Valthek space. Refugee camps housed millions of displaced Valtheks whose worlds had become uninhabitable. But human aid ships were also there, providing food, medicine, and temporary housing. Even in victory, humanity chose compassion over cruelty. But most importantly, we learned that we do not have to choose between being peaceful and being strong. We can offer friendship to those who treat us with respect, while making it clear that attacking our people carries terrible consequences. Dr. Yuna Lim, daughter of Dr. Kyung-ho Yoon, was teaching a class at the New Seoul University when her alien exchange student asked the question that had been bothering him for weeks. Professor Lim, the young Zelthan said, I do not understand. Human psychology. Why did your people not reveal their power from the beginning? Why allow others to attack you for 3 years? Yuna smiled, an expression that had become legendary throughout the galaxy, equal parts warmth and warning. Because, Kethavar, true strength is knowing you could hurt someone and choosing not to. We gave every species in the galaxy the chance to treat us with respect. We tried diplomacy first. We followed the rules. We asked nicely for justice. She pulled up images from the Battle of New Jeju on her classroom display. When those methods failed, when they chose to keep killing our people, we showed them what we were capable of. But even then, we did not seek to eliminate them. The Valtheks will live. Their species will survive. They will just have a century to think about their choices. Another student, a young Nexari, clicked her mandibles nervously. But what if someone tests humanity again? What if they think your victory was just luck? Yuna's smile never changed, but something in her eyes grew harder. Then they will learn what the Valthex learned. We will be polite about it. We will give warnings. We will offer chances for peaceful resolution. She paused. Right up until we are not polite anymore. The classroom was silent. Every alien student understood that they were looking at the next generation of humanity. People who had grown up knowing that their species was one of the most powerful in the galaxy, but who still believed that power should be used responsibly. The why. Galaxy is a safer place now, Yuna continued. Not because humanity conquered it, but because everyone knows we could if we needed to. Most species prefer to trade with us, learn from us, and work with us rather than fight us. That is exactly what we wanted. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers opened with a deep hum. Ambassador Hyunwoo stepped through first, his black diplomatic uniform crisp and formal. Behind him walked two other humans in matching black clothes. The tall halls of Nexus Station stretched above them, made of crystal that sparkled with strange light. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to watch the human delegation enter. Some creatures stood on four legs like giant cats with purple fur. Others looked like walking trees with blue bark. A few floated in the air, their bodies glowing like living stars. Each group had brought their guards, big warriors with shiny armor and deadly weapons. Hyunwoo walked calmly down the center path. His steps echoed in the quiet hall. The two humans behind him moved with smooth, easy steps. Their names were Tae-min and So-young. They looked relaxed, almost casual. But something was wrong. The aliens noticed it right away. Where were their weapons? Every other species had brought armed guards. The tall gray Catherians carried plasma rifles that could burn through metal. The bug-like Vextar had bioweapons growing from their arms. Even the peaceful Luminari had floating energy guns around their glowing bodies. The humans had nothing. Taemin walked on Hyunwoo's left side. He was average height for a human, with short black hair and calm dark eyes. His hands hung loose at his sides. No gun, no sword, no armor. Just a simple communication device on his belt. So-young walked on the right. She was smaller than Tae-min, but moved with the same easy confidence. Her long black hair was tied back in a simple style. Like Tae-min, she carried no weapons at all. Chancellor Zephyros rose from his seat at the front of the chamber. He was a Catherian, standing nearly 8 feet tall with gray skin like stone and 4 arms. His voice boomed across the hall. Welcome, humans of Earth. We gather today to consider your request to join our Galactic Council. The humans stopped in the center of the chamber. Hyunwoo bowed his head slightly in respect. Thank you, Chancellor. We are honored to be here. Around the circular chamber, alien delegates whispered to each other. The sounds mixed together, clicks, buzzes, musical tones, and deep rumbles. But the meaning was clear. They were all wondering the same thing. Why did the humans bring defenseless guards? War Commander Thexval leaned forward in his seat. He was even larger than the Chancellor, with scars covering his gray skin. 4 plasma rifles hung from his belt. His own guards stood behind him like living statues, each one armed with enough weapons to level a building. Ambassador Hyunwoo, Thexval's voice was like grinding metal. We notice your companions carry no arms. Is this some human custom we should understand? Hyunwoo smiled calmly. These are Tae-min and So-young, members of our diplomatic security team. They are here to ensure our safety during these important talks. A sound like laughter came from the Vextar section. Admiral Kextra, an insect-like creature with 6 arms and clicking mandibles, spoke up. Security team? With no weapons? How do they plan to provide security? Before Hyunwoo could answer, another human stepped forward. This was Yoonji, the cultural attaché. She was shorter than the others, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Perhaps we could begin the formal proceedings, Yoonji said. We have brought much to share with the Council about human culture and capabilities. Chancellor Zephyros nodded. Very well. Let us begin. The next few hours passed slowly. Hyunwoo spoke about Earth and human history. He showed pictures of human cities, art, and technology. The council listened, but many delegates seemed distracted. They kept looking at Tae-min and So-young. The two guards never moved from their positions. They stood relaxed but alert, their eyes scanning the chamber constantly. When delegates shifted in their seats or made sudden movements, both humans would turn slightly to watch. But they did it so smoothly that most aliens didn't notice. During the first break, groups of aliens gathered to talk. The humans could hear fragments of conversation in various languages, but the translation devices made most words clear. Think they're mocking us. Must be some kind of trick. Maybe they're more primitive than we thought. Dr. Veltara, a luminary who glowed soft blue, floated over to speak with Yunji. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. Your guards are very calm, she said. Are they perhaps enhanced with technology we cannot see? Yunji shook her head. No, enhancements. Tae-min and So-young are just regular humans. Regular humans, Dr. Veltara repeated slowly. And they provide security how exactly? They're very good at their job, Yunji said with a small smile. When the session resumed, more aliens began testing the humans. Counselor Pithrex, who looked like a living rock formation, asked pointed questions about human military strength. A delegate from the Spiral Arm Consortium made comments about human weakness compared to other species. Through it all, Hyunwoo remained calm and professional. He answered every question honestly but revealed little about human capabilities, beyond what was necessary. But the real tension started when War Commander Thexaval stood up. I have a concern, he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. How can we trust a species that doesn't even arm their guards? Either they're too primitive to understand the dangers of galactic politics, or they're showing disrespect to this council. Murmurs of agreement came from several alien groups. Some delegates nodded their various heads or appendages. Thexval continued. In my experience, species that don't understand strength don't survive long in the galaxy. Perhaps humans are not ready for membership in our council. The chamber fell silent. This was a direct challenge. Hyunwoo stood slowly. His face remained calm, but something changed in his posture. He seemed more solid somehow, more present. War Commander, he said quietly, I assure you that humans understand strength very well. Behind him, Tae-min and So-young shifted slightly. The movement was small, almost invisible. But somehow the feeling in the chamber changed. The air itself seemed to grow heavier. Do you? Thexval stepped closer to his seat's edge. Then why? Do your guards carry no weapons? Hyunwoo looked up at the massive alien warrior. Because they don't need them. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Several aliens made sounds of disbelief or amusement. Thexval's four arms crossed over his chest. Prove it. Before anyone could react, Tae-min stepped forward. His movement was fluid, like water flowing. In less than a second, he had positioned himself directly between Hyunwoo and Thexval. His hands remained at his sides, but his entire body radiated quiet confidence. Is there a problem here? Tae-min asked. His voice was calm and level. The war commander stared down at the human. Tae-min was less than half his size and carried no weapons, but something in the human's stance made Thexval pause. No problem, Thexval said after a moment. Yet. Tae-min nodded once and stepped back to his position. So-young had also moved during the exchange, though no one had seen her do it. She was now in a spot where she could see every alien in the chamber while keeping the human delegation in her protection. Chancellor Zephyros called for order. We will continue these discussions tomorrow. All delegates should return to their quarters for rest. As the aliens began to file out of the chamber, many continued to stare at the human guards. Some looked confused, others seemed thoughtful. A few appeared worried, though they couldn't say why. Min Ho, the human intelligence specialist, had been taking notes throughout the session. As the chamber emptied, he approached Yunji. Interesting reactions, he said quietly. They're really bothered by Tae-min and So-young. Yunji nodded. They expect to understand everything they see. When they can't categorize something, it makes them nervous. Good, said Hyunwoo, joining the conversation. Let them wonder. Understanding will come when they're ready for it. The human delegation gathered their materials and prepared to leave. As they walked toward the exit, Taemin and So-young took their positions again. They moved like shadows, always in the right place at the right time. Behind them, alien delegates continued to whisper and stare. In just one day, the humans had created a mystery that would keep the entire council talking. What they didn't know yet was that the mystery was about to become much deeper. 3 days had passed since the humans first entered the council chambers. Each day brought new questions and growing tension. The alien delegates watched every move the human guards made, looking for hidden weapons or secret technology. They found nothing. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood at the center of the chamber again. Today he was showing the council examples of human achievement. Holographic displays showed Earth's cities, art, music, and scientific discoveries. Many delegates seemed impressed by human creativity and technology. Your music is quite beautiful, said Dr. Veltara, the glowing luminary. And your cities are well designed. But we still don't understand your approach to security. Hyunwoo gestured to a display showing a human hospital. Humans believe that true security comes from understanding, not just force. We prefer to solve problems with knowledge and cooperation. War Commander Thexval made a sound like grinding stones. Pretty words. But the galaxy is dangerous. Understanding won't stop a plasma rifle. Perhaps not, said Hyunwoo. But it might prevent someone from wanting to fire one. The session continued with humans presenting more of their culture. Yoonji spoke about human art and literature. Minho explained human scientific methods. Jaeho, their technical expert, demonstrated some of their cleaner technologies. But through it all, alien attention kept drifting back to Taemin and So-young. The two guards stood in their usual positions, relaxed but watchful. They never seemed tired, never shifted their weight uncomfortably, never showed any sign of boredom or distraction. It's not natural. Admiral Kextra clicked to another Vextar. Delegate. No creature can stand that still for that long without artificial help. Maybe they're robots, suggested Counselor Pithrex. Advanced machines made to look like humans. But every scan the aliens tried showed the same results. Taemin and So-young were completely biological. No implants, no cybernetics, no hidden technology. Just human. When the day's session ended, Chancellor Zephyros announced a recess period. Delegates could move freely around Nexus Station for the next few hours. Many aliens headed to the station's various restaurants and social areas. The human delegation decided to tour the station's cultural district. Hyunwoo wanted to learn more about the different alien civilizations represented in the council. As they walked through the wide corridors, other delegates and station residents stared at them openly. The corridors of Nexus Station were built to accommodate many different species. Ceilings stretched high above to allow tall aliens to move comfortably. The floors were made of a material that provided good traction for creatures with claws, hooves, or tentacles. Gravity was set to a standard level that most species could. Handle Taemin and So-young walked on either side of the group as always. Their steps were silent on the station flooring. They seemed to glide rather than walk, making no unnecessary movements. They had been exploring for about an hour when trouble found them. War Commander Thexval stepped out from a side corridor. He was not alone. 6 Catherian warriors flanked him, each one carrying multiple weapons. Their gray skin looked like armor plating and their forearms made them look even more threatening. Ambassador, Thexval's voice echoed off the corridor walls. I was hoping to have a private conversation with you. Hyunwoo stopped walking. The rest of the human delegation gathered closer together, except for Taemin and So-young. Both guards had moved before anyone realized it. Taemin now stood directly between the humans and the Catherians. So-young had positioned herself where she could see both directions down the corridor. Of course, War Commander, Hyunwoo said, calmly. What can I help you with? Thexval stepped closer. His warriors spread out behind him, hands resting on their weapons. The corridor suddenly felt much smaller. I want to know what game you're playing, Thexval said. No species sends defenseless children to guard their diplomats. It's either an insult to the council or some kind of trick. Other aliens in the corridor had noticed the confrontation. They moved to the sides, creating a clear space around the two groups. Some looked excited to see what would happen. Others appeared nervous. There's no game, Hyunwoo replied. And Taemin and So Young are not children. They're experienced, professionals. Thexval laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. Professionals, look at them. That one, he pointed at Taemin, is half my size. The female is even smaller. My youngest warrior could break them both without trying. Taemin spoke for the first time since entering the corridor. Is that a threat, War Commander? His voice was quiet and calm. He hadn't moved from his position, hadn't changed his relaxed posture. But somehow the temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. Not a threat, Thexval said. A fact, you carry no weapons. You wear no armor. You're not enhanced with technology. How exactly do you plan to protect anyone? By doing my job? Taemin answered simply. One of the Catherian warriors stepped forward. This one was slightly smaller than Thexval, but still twice Taemin's size. Scars covered his arms and face, and his eyes glowed with aggression. Maybe we should test that, the warrior said. See how well you do your job. The tension in the corridor ratcheted higher. More aliens gathered to watch, keeping their distance, but clearly interested in the outcome. So Young finally spoke. That wouldn't be wise. Her voice was even quieter than Taemin's, but it carried clearly through the corridor. Several aliens looked surprised to hear her speak at all. Wouldn't be wise? The scarred Catherian laughed. Little human, I've fought in 100 battles across 20 worlds. I've killed creatures you couldn't imagine. What could you possibly do to me? So Young looked at him with calm, dark eyes. Nothing. As long as you don't threaten the people I'm protecting. The Catherian warrior's hand moved toward his weapon. Instantly, both human guards shifted. The movement was so fast that most observers missed it. One moment they were standing relaxed. The next, they were in completely different positions. Taemin had somehow moved closer to the Catherians without appearing to take a step. So Young had angled herself so she could see every alien in the corridor while keeping the human delegation behind her. But they still carried no weapons. Their hands remained empty. War Commander Thexval studied the humans with new interest. Something had changed in the last few seconds, but he couldn't identify what. Interesting, he said slowly. You move quickly for such small creatures. We move when we need to, Taemin replied. A new voice interrupted the standoff. Is there a problem here? Everyone turned to see Chancellor Zephyros approaching down the corridor. His forearms and massive height made the already crowded space feel even tighter. No problem, Chancellor, Thexval said. Just getting to know our new friends better. The Chancellor looked between the two groups. His ancient eyes missed nothing. Not the positions of the guards, not the tension in the air, not the way other aliens had gathered to watch. Perhaps this conversation would be better held in a more formal setting, he suggested. The corridors are not ideal for diplomatic discussions. Thexval nodded slowly. Perhaps you're right. He looked directly at Taemin. We'll continue this later, little human. Anytime, Taemin responded. The Catherian warriors regrouped around their commander and moved down the corridor. But they kept looking back at the humans as they walked away. Once the Catherians were gone, the crowd of watching aliens began to disperse. Many continued to stare at the human guards as they left. Chancellor Zephyros approached the human delegation. Ambassador Hyunwoo, may I speak with you privately? They moved to a quiet alcove off the main corridor. The Chancellor's massive form blocked most of the space, but his voice was gentle when he spoke. War Commander Thexval is aggressive by nature. His species values strength above all other qualities. Your guard's lack of visible weapons confuses him. I understand, Hyunwoo said. We don't wish to cause problems with the Council. You're not causing problems, the Chancellor assured him. But you are causing questions. Many species are curious about human capabilities. Some are becoming concerned. Yunji stepped forward. Concerned about what? The Chancellor was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. There are species in the galaxy that hide their true nature behind false appearances. Pirates who pretend to be traders. Warriors who disguise themselves as diplomats. When a species appears weak but acts confident, it makes others nervous. We're not hiding anything, Minho said. I believe you, the Chancellor replied. But belief and proof are different things. The Council will need to understand human capabilities before we can make a final decision about membership. After the Chancellor left, the human delegation returned to their quarters. The rooms provided by Nexus Station were comfortable but clearly designed for multiple species. Everything was larger than humans needed, built to accommodate the biggest aliens in the Council. Jeho checked their communication equipment while Yunji prepared reports for Earth. Minho analyzed the day's interactions, noting which species seemed friendly and which appeared hostile, but it was Hyunwoo who asked the question they were all thinking. How long do we wait before showing them what humans really are? Taimin and So Young exchanged a look. They had been patient so far, allowing the aliens to wonder and guess, but the confrontation with Thexval had changed things. The fifth day of negotiations began like any other. Ambassador Hyunwoo entered the council chambers with his usual calm confidence. Taimin and So Young took their positions as always. The alien delegates settled into their seats, still whispering about the human guards who carried no weapons. Chancellor Zephyros called the session to order. Today we will discuss trade agreements and mutual defense treaties, he announced. These are complex topics that will require careful consideration. But the careful discussions would have to wait. 15 minutes into the session, the lights in the chamber flickered. A low humming sound came from somewhere in the station's walls. Several aliens looked around nervously. Then everything went wrong at once. The artificial gravity cut out completely. Delegates who had been sitting in their chairs suddenly floated toward the ceiling. Papers, data tablets, and personal items drifted through the air like snow. Some aliens cried out in alarm. Others grabbed onto their chairs to keep from floating away. Before anyone could react to the zero gravity, it came back. But not normal gravity, double gravity. Everything that had been floating crashed down hard. Delegates slammed into their seats. Several aliens who couldn't handle the increased weight collapsed to the floor. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed on and off. The air recycling systems made grinding sounds as they struggled to work properly. Then the gravity changed again. This time it shifted to the side as if the entire station was tilting. Delegates slid across the floor toward the chamber walls. Furniture toppled over. The beautiful crystal ceiling began dropping pieces of broken material. Through it all, two figures moved like they belonged in the chaos. Taimin and So Young adapted to each gravity change as if they had been expecting it. When gravity disappeared, they pushed off surfaces to control their movement. When it doubled, they stayed on their feet while others fell. When it shifted sideways, they used the new direction like it was natural. But more importantly, they began helping others. So Young caught a small, bird-like delegate who had been thrown across the chamber by a gravity shift. The creature weighed almost nothing in normal gravity, but the constantly changing forces had left it tumbling helplessly through the air. "I've got you," So Young said calmly. She guided the frightened alien to a secure position near one of the support columns. Meanwhile, Taemin was dealing with a bigger problem. A massive piece of the ceiling had broken free and was falling toward a group of Vextar delegates. In the doubled gravity, the chunk of crystal weighed thousands of pounds. Most of the aliens couldn't even move under the crushing force. But Taimin ran directly toward the falling debris. At the last second, he planted his feet and caught the massive piece with both hands. The crystal should have crushed him flat. Any normal person would have been smashed into the floor. But Taimin held it steady, his muscles straining but not failing. Slowly, carefully, he lowered the debris to the ground away from the aliens. Admiral Kekstra stared in shock. "That's impossible," she clicked. "No creature that size could lift something that heavy in double gravity." But there was no time to wonder about impossible things. The chaos was getting worse. The station's atmospheric systems began failing. The air grew thin as oxygen levels dropped. Some aliens started gasping for breath. Others activated emergency breathing equipment. The artificial gravity continued to shift randomly. 0G for 30 seconds, then triple gravity, then normal. Gravity tilted at impossible angles. Each change sent debris and people flying in new directions. Through it all, the human guards worked with incredible efficiency. When a group of luminary began flickering and fading in the low oxygen, So Young somehow found emergency gas canisters and got them working. She moved through the chaotic chamber like she could predict where the gravity would change next. When Chancellor Zephyros became trapped under a fallen support beam during a period of triple gravity, Taemin was there. The massive Catherian weighed over 800 pounds, and the beam weighed even more in the increased gravity. But Taemin lifted the entire weight like he was moving furniture. How? The Chancellor gasped as Taemin helped him to safety. Practice, Taemin replied simply. The other humans were helping too, but in different ways. Jeho had found a working terminal and was trying to diagnose the station's problems. Yoonji was coordinating rescue efforts, directing aliens to safe areas. Minho was keeping track of everyone in the chamber, making sure no one was lost in the chaos. But it was the guards who did the impossible things. So Young prevented a massive display screen from crushing a group of smaller aliens by somehow catching it one-handed while pulling 3 delegates to safety with her other arm. The screen weighed hundreds of pounds, but she handled it like it was made of paper. Taemin moved through areas where the gravity was crushing other aliens flat. When War Commander Thexval and 2 of his warriors became pinned under debris in quadruple gravity, Taemin lifted the wreckage off all 3 of them. Thexval stared up at the human in amazement. How are you still moving? I can barely breathe in this gravity. Earth gravity is higher than this, Taemin said as he helped the massive alien to his feet. The crisis lasted 6 hours. For 6 hours, the humans worked constantly to save alien lives. They moved injured delegates to safety. They prevented debris from crushing people. They shared their own breathing equipment when aliens couldn't get enough oxygen. Most importantly, they never seemed to tire. While aliens collapsed from exhaustion or were crushed by the changing gravity, Taemin and So Young continued working as if nothing unusual was happening. When the station's systems finally stabilized, the chamber looked like a battlefield. Broken furniture and debris covered the floor. Many aliens lay exhausted or injured. Emergency repair crews rushed in to fix the damage and help the wounded. But everyone was alive. In 6 hours of deadly chaos, not a single delegate had died. Several should have been crushed by debris. Others should have suffocated when the air systems failed. A few should have been killed by the extreme gravity changes. Instead, they were all breathing and safe. Dr. Veltara floated over to where Yoonji was helping organize the rescue efforts. The luminary's usual blue glow was dim with exhaustion. Your guards, she said weakly. They saved my life. They saved many lives. How are they not exhausted? Yoonji looked across the chamber to where Taemin and So Young were still helping aliens who couldn't stand in the aftermath of the gravity changes. Both humans looked tired, but they were still moving normally while aliens 3 times their size lay gasping on the floor. They're used to difficult conditions, Yoonji said. Used to this? Dr. Veltara gestured at the destroyed chamber. Random gravity changes? Crushing weight? Thin air? What kind of world do you come from? Before Yoonji could answer, Chancellor Zephyros approached. The massive alien was walking slowly, clearly still recovering from his ordeal under the fallen beam. I owe your people a debt, he said formally. Without their help, many would have died today. We're just glad everyone is safe, Yoonji replied. The Chancellor looked at her carefully. Your guards lifted weights that should have been impossible for creatures their size. They moved normally in gravity that crushed much larger beings. They worked for hours without rest in conditions that left my strongest warriors helpless. He paused, studying the humans with new eyes. What exactly are humans? He asked quietly. It was the question everyone wanted to ask but hadn't dared. Around the chamber, Aliens who could still move gathered closer to hear the answer. Yunji looked at Ambassador Hyunwoo, who nodded slightly. "We're survivors," she said simply. "Earth taught us to adapt to anything." War Commander Thexval struggled to his feet. His gray skin was pale and his forearms shook with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with new understanding. "The gravity on your world," he said slowly. "It's not like here, is it?" "No," Hyunwoo confirmed. "It's much stronger." "How much stronger?" Admiral Kekstra asked. "About 3 times what you're used to," So Young said as she helped a group of smaller aliens to their feet. "This felt light to us." The chamber fell silent except for the sounds of repair crews working. Aliens stared at the humans with new expressions. Not confusion anymore, or contempt. Something closer to awe. 3 times, Dr. Veltara whispered. "You live your entire lives in gravity 3 times stronger than what nearly killed us today." "Every day," Taemin confirmed, "from the moment we're born." Counselor Pithrex, whose rock-like form had cracked under the extreme gravity, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "What else about your world is different?" "Lots of things," Jae-ho said with a small smile. "The air pressure that nearly suffocated you today. That's normal for us at high altitude. The temperature variations that damaged some of your equipment, we call that weather." Minho added, "The random changes that made this crisis so dangerous? Earth throws worse at us regularly. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, floods. We learn to adapt or we don't survive." The aliens looked at each other with growing understanding. They had assumed the humans were weak because they carried no weapons. They had thought human guards were helpless because they wore no armor. They had been completely wrong. "You're not just diplomats," Chancellor Zephyros said slowly. "You're all warriors, every one of you.